Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Incredible guests, amazing insights the world over. They've had a long time, sometimes a little bit less time, to perfect their life journey, their foundation, and how they help others. We have incredibly talented healers coming on the show, professors, scientists, doctors, psychiatrists, actors, all walks of life. But again, they've been through something and they've paid attention to their life path. And in turn, more often than not, they're giving service to others one way or the other. They're sharing part of that development, their growth, their expansion, and how they help others. It's been an incredible run, 50 episodes in 2023. We've expanded to 3 shows halfway through 2024. So we've leapt to 161 shows booked through 2024. Pretty incredible with 3 shows a week. I'd like to welcome one of these very, very special guests, highly intuitive, but you don't necessarily know that. She's an actual MD, a doctor, physician, tons of experience, whether we're talking the speaking circuit, her books, how she is known reputationally, not just across America, but the world. I'd like to welcome Dr. KAREN WYATT to the show. She's incredible, and she has very specific focuses in which she helps people. She's going to explain that in the show. KAREN, thank you very much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's my pleasure. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, it's great to see you again. And can you take us through a little bit about your journey, but how did you get focused, first of all, in this whole area?
Well, I guess I would have to go all the way back to when I was a child, maybe 8 or 9 years old, and I had an angel visitation in the middle of the night, and I woke up in the night and I saw this most beautiful, translucent woman standing over me, just showering me with pure love. I'd never experienced anything like it in my life. And I got out of bed and tried to turn the light on so I could see her better. And then I couldn't see her anymore. But that moment stayed with me forever. It's still so vivid in my mind. And I knew right then I have a guardian angel and she's watching over me no matter what happens. And so that gifted me with this incredible deep faith that the universe is good and that it's working on our behalf, and there's love and light here. And that was just so powerful for me my whole life, always having this deep center. And when I was around at age 12, I decided I wanted to be a doctor for whatever reason. And then at 16, I had a classmate die, and I got this download that the real purpose of life is to learn about love. And so that meshed together really well for me with being a doctor. Like, I would be a doctor who loves people and I would love people well. And so from age 16 on, I started focusing on becoming a doctor, taking all the pre-med classes to get into medical school, only to show up at medical school on day 1 when they asked us, "Why are you here? What made you want to be a doctor?" And I said, well, because love is the force that heals everyone. And I want to be a doctor. So, because that's the perfect place to be, someone who heals people with love. And everyone in the room looked at me with terrified looks on their faces, like, I'm sure thinking that I was crazy. And that was my first realization that, well, this is going to be a hard path. Like, medicine is not necessarily a field that's going to support me. I'm going to have to draw on my inner resources, because there are not humans here who are coming to me saying, well done, you're doing the right thing. This is great. So I found myself kind of going undercover and hiding all of this incredible light and love and wisdom that had just been handed to me. I just felt like I have to be careful how I show it and how I talk about it. But I do remember one day a surgeon that I was a 4th-year medical student, a surgeon I was working with, called me and said, "I need you to talk to one of my patients, and I need you to do whatever it is that you do." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "I don't know what it is, but you do something that no one else does, and I need you to go do that." So I knew, like, Okay, so something's shining or showing up here that even though I'm trying to hide it. But that was a real validation for me that medicine needs me. Medicine needs people like me who can just shine light and show pure love to people. So that got me started on my path as a doctor. I was a family medicine doctor and very popular and successful in the beginning. And then my father died by suicide and about 3 years into my medical practice, and that devastated me, and I started to question everything I ever knew because I my whole theory that love is what heals, and I kept asking myself, "But my dad is the person I love the most, and I couldn't heal him, so does any of this make sense?" And I felt like that is really kind of the plunge into darkness we sometimes have to go through on the spiritual journey, because I had to work my way out of that and get back to the place where I felt restored in love and light. And I ended up becoming a hospice volunteer, working with people who were dying because I needed help to understand all this grief and pain inside. And instantly I knew the day I saw my first patient that, oh, I got this incredible download like, this is where I was meant to be all along. This is the medicine I'm meant to practice. And so my whole path shifted. And I, from then on, started working with patients and their families who were dealing with serious illness and at the end of life. And so it was all just so powerful, but it taught me that it's not a smooth path. Our growth in spiritual development and evolution, it's not a smooth path. And there are lots of ups and downs, and even times when we feel like everything fell apart that we thought we believed in, but it's just an opportunity to kind of rebuild and reconstruct and let in new ideas and new understandings.
Mm. Beautiful start to the interview. Wow. Okay. If you had to back up though and go 2 miles up, the biggest picture, a cut to the chase reminder for us all that it's love more or allow more, love more, show love always. What have you learned from all your experience to date? And what's the quick few reminders, a recap, if you would, for everyone?
Well, I had to learn a lot about fear, and I'm still trying to learn that and how fear obstructs us from feeling love and seeing the light. But fear is just part of our human journey. It's kind of built into us. It's our primitive instinct. So we're always negotiating with that fear and trying to remember like how to calm that quiet and calm that part of ourselves down so that the love and the light can shine through and guide us.
Mm. Can you talk to us about the concept of time? What's your view about time?
I mean, it's interesting because I've never been good with time. People joke about that all the time because as a doctor, I was in the room with a patient and I had no idea if I'd been talking with them for 5 minutes or 1 hour. I never knew. I couldn't track it. So I had to tell other people, if I'm in there more than an hour, you better come and get me because I'll be lost somewhere and I won't know what time it is. So I kind of have a sense that it isn't real. I get that it's a construct that we create to help us organize our lives during the day, but I'm not good at it in general at like being aware of time and the passage of time.
Do you have a way that you describe everything from the neck up? If we talk about like thinking, conditionality, conditional love, judging, reacting, stress, worry, fear, all that stuff, versus what is generally perceived as being the heart. Again, limitlessness, timelessness, unconditional love, awareness. Is there a way you describe when you're up here versus down here? And how do you talk about that?
Well, I guess I conceive it for me as being I conceive of the mind, body, ego connected complex, which is like my lower self, my human physical self, trying to lead me through this life and make choices for my life. And then I call my higher self, I refer to it as my soul. That's how I see it and how it feels to me, the part of me that connects to the divine. It's a unique part of who I am, but that's where I am connected to the divine and where divinity enters me, I guess I would say. And I realized that not everyone is aware of that. Not everyone is aware of their higher self. And that is heartbreaking to me because it could change everything. So when I see people who are just living in the mind, body, ego complex, that life is very, very hard if you're living without any awareness of your higher self and all the love and the light that exists there.
Hmm. Okay, so let's go down a quick checklist. Do angels exist?
Well, I certainly believe so, because at least whatever, I don't know if what every how everyone conceives of angels, but whatever I experienced as a child, I called an angel, and that light and love and divine transmission, I believe definitely exists.
Hmm. Okay, and would it be fair to call the universe or to describe the universe this way? Love is actually the fabric of the universe. And why do you think that again? Can you remind us why love is so big?
I guess because as it is what I experienced when I had my angel visitation, and what I could see that made sense to me. I remember as a child learning about infinity, the infinity symbol, and I could go there in my mind as a little child once, and I learned the word infinity, and it's like, oh, that's the place. That's where I go. That's where I live. And I saw it as this like endless place filled with stars and light and love. And so I just had that experience and that belief as a young child, but it still makes sense to me that love is what motivates all of the growth and the movement in the world.
Hmm. Okay, I'm going to go down one last little checklist. These are no big deal, but have you had, and you don't have to answer this publicly if you don't want, but many guests have had either near-death experiences, shared death experiences, out-of-body experiences, lucid dreams, and so on. We'll go down that checklist, but we're going to add a particular few extra categories for you. Events maybe in the middle of this or in the middle of that, medical profession or other, that you can't explain that were positive, that helped explain the situation, fix this, or do the situation, support you somehow, or all out. Let's pull back the curtain. Have you actually run into an angel in human form? But any one of those, or another type of figure, maybe a loved one, or just had a vision of it, but anything that is outside the ordinary thinking, could you touch upon it again if you're comfortable and you're totally like, yeah, no problem. I gave a speech at Omega Institute and I used this example. It was from 2014. What can you share with us on one of those fronts?
Well, you mentioned lucid dreaming, and I've had lucid dreams throughout my life that are also really powerful. Once again, always bring me that message of love and show me the beautiful light and love that are there. And I've had the experience as a hospice doctor a number of times of having dreams of my patients shortly before they died. But in each of these dreams, I was seeing the person whole and well, and I was actually like seeing their soul because they were translucent, so beautiful. And would get messages from the patients, oftentimes for their family members, so that I could go to the family and tell them, I had this dream. This is what I heard, and I don't know if it's important to you. I knew it was. I knew, like, I got this message for a reason. I have to share this. But I wasn't sure how they would perceive it. Like, why is this doctor having a dream of our loved one? What I understood at the time is because the loved ones are grieving so much, the person who was dying couldn't communicate with them very easily, but I was there as the person they could give the message to, so I became a channel for it. Every time I just saw it was like I didn't know what the message meant that I got, but the family did, and it was always something really powerful and really beautiful. So that became part of my hospice work. I didn't have the dreams with every patient, but when I did, I knew this is very important, and I have to speak up and tell the family what I saw.
That's incredible. And I get the concept of, in a sense, there's nothing you can tell anyone else because they're getting their own unique experience at all times. And there's a lot of people who will remind us that it's perfect how it is. But it doesn't make sense if, my new shiny, I bought it an hour ago, BMW just got wrecked. I'm okay, but I'm really upset about my car. No one wants to hear that somehow that was a fantastic experience. There's not a lot you can tell others, but being a doctor, you might be in a very different position. Can you address this, the concept of, again, life as it is presented? Maybe, again, it's the concept of events either are perceived as happening to us or happening for us, or the concept, again, that everything is perfect as it is, as it comes, because it's offering us something. Or again, from the doctor's perspective, you were in a unique position where people looked up to you, and so they were a little more open or receptive than normally people are going to be, because you were who you were, plus the title. Can you talk to us on one of those fronts about either how life works? Again, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want, is another famous quote. Talk to us about one of those areas.
I guess I see it that life is really just meant to be a classroom. Like I always took that quote, we're not physical beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And I would always ask, well, why? Why did we want to come here and have this physical experience? If we were already spirits, that's perfect. Why did we need to come here and be in physical bodies? But what occurred to me is because this is where we can experience what it's like to have some pain and suffering, and also to die and to experience grief. And like, this is how we actually deepen our skills at love, is when we go through the challenges that physical human life bring to us. So that's how we become even more bright and brilliant and loving. And so we come here to experience the classroom of life, and whatever curriculum it has for us, it's different for everyone. All kinds of things will happen. I'm not saying it's preordained or anything. I think the curriculum unfolds as we go through life, and experiences will come our way. And it's our choice if we want to view it as a classroom, like something I could learn from. And whenever I've been able to do that, it's been so rich for me. I've learned so much, and that my dad's death being one of those experiences that really knocked me to the ground. But as soon as I could turn it around and say, going to the classroom, what can I learn through what I've gone through here in my grief? It always like transforms me, and always like moves me further along on my path. So this isn't wisdom I would necessarily give to people in hospice who are dealing with a serious illness or on their deathbed. This is the wisdom that comes to you later when you're able to reflect on it and look back on things. And so don't imagine that I was sitting there saying, this is a classroom, learn from your illness. Primarily what I did as a hospice doctor, I just brought love and light and peace. I could come sit in the room with the patient, hold their hand, help them. I don't know how it worked, but somehow people would see light, they would feel comforted, they would know that they were safe, and that where they were going was a safe place. But I never had to tell them that or say the words. I just sat with them, and I would hold their hand, and that would somehow get transmitted. So I understood I'm a channel, but not necessarily through my words. Now I channel through words because I write books and I do podcasts and speak. But in those moments, it was just my presence that would channel whatever people needed.
Can we keep it right there and just have you, if you could deliver a few mantras, a quick couple of poignant phrases or points that are some of the cumulative wisdom you've garnered over the years from helping people in hospice and elsewhere. Again, these are sort of the pearl or golden nuggets, the pearls or the golden nuggets that you've accumulated that you're just simply passing on to the audience right now. Might be small stuff, might be big stuff. And obviously it's not something you can tell anybody who's in the middle of dying necessarily, unless you get into one of those deep conversations. What can you share with us?
So one of the more powerful ones I learned was, let life change you. And that's what came to me. I realized in my grief process after my dad died, I was refusing to change. I didn't want anything to change. I wanted to go backwards. I wanted everything to be like it was before he died. And then I realized, whoa, this was one of the most powerful experiences I could ever have in my life. It's terrible and it hurts, but I have to be willing to let it change me instead of resisting and thinking I can keep everything how it used to be. And I'm scared of change, and it's hurting me to change, but that's what needs to happen when something like this comes in your life, when that's the curriculum that comes for you. And so that I remind myself of all the time is it's okay. Let life change you. It's always for the good, even when it doesn't seem like it in the moment.
Mm. Can you cover one more area, the heart, the human heart, how big it is, how resilient it is? If you trust it more, lots of extra stuff happens. There's got to be something there. You can talk to us about how resilient, how big we are if we just allow more, trust more. What is your version of that as a reminder for us all?
I see it, I guess, as allowing the heart to expand. And I use the breath, breathing into the heart to kind of expand the heart with breath. But then my breath also becomes like light and love from the universe and breathing it into the heart. Because I think the heart, it's the seat of the soul, and it is where all of this transmission occurs via our hearts. And so that's been a powerful lesson for me. I had to learn about it. Everything, grief is stored in our heart, anger is stored in the heart, and sometimes we have to go back and really dive in and look at those things that might be stuck there that we have to move so that we can keep expanding from the heart and spread the love and the light out as ripples that emanate from us.
Okay, so hey, there have been a bunch of TV shows over the years with doctors in it, Grey's Anatomy, House, Chicago Med, or whatever it was called. Do you have a favorite, and do you have a favorite series of recollections of either workplaces where you had a major influence, not that you didn't have an influence in them all, but where maybe the younger doctors were pulling you aside saying, how do you do it? Or you, again, had those moments. It wasn't necessarily about, hey, can you come do what you do to my patient? But doctors were privately turning to you, hoping to have some of you rub off on them. Can you talk to us about, first of all, what was your favorite? Have you had a favorite TV program or a movie that you're like Patch Adams, something like that? What has been one of your favorite inspiring shows?
I did love Patch Adams, but right now I'm watching The Resident, which is another medical series. And I just really like the way they handle really tough questions in medicine. They bring up all kinds of issues that are dilemmas for people and have a lot of gray area. And I really like the way they deal with it. It's medically, it's not the most accurate of the medical shows, but I set all that aside because I just like looking how they deal with these life situations that people find themselves in. And so I'm enjoying that show.
Okay.
Um, and as far as, I guess, twice in my life, I've been involved in clinics that were either for low income, uninsured people. And that somehow was the place where I also, in addition to hospice, felt the most at home because I'm working with people that the rest of the medical profession kind of disregards or rejects because they don't have money, they can't pay for services. And so there's something great about being in a place where you can give whatever you give for free. You're not charging anything. And working with people who've had a really hard life and a lot of challenges come to them. And that's the place where I think other doctors saw me work in that setting and would always come to me and want to know how do you do this? What's happening? And one of the clinics that I worked in, like we just we called it the clinic of little miracles because there was one thing after another. We got donations, and almost always somebody would donate a whole bag full of a certain type of medication, and within a few days a patient would come in who needed that exact medication. And so it's kind of like this place where I was able to just trust whatever we need is going to come to us. We don't have money, we can't afford to buy supplies or anything, but it will come because we got donations all the time. And always we had what we needed to care for the patients. And it was really an amazing time.
Hmm. Can you name one of those either spiritual self-help authors? It could be the Kubler-Ross Foundation and her original series of books. Has there been a couple of authors that have been inspiring for you, or just comforting for you, or just a reminder of how the universe flows that again you've been drawn to?
Let me see. I've studied the works of Ken Wilber a lot, who writes about integral theory, and his integral theory gave me an approach through my rational mind to spirituality that really helped bring my worlds together, because I had a hard time for a long time integrating what I understood spiritually with what I learned in my medical training and figuring out how they fit together. And Ken Wilber's writings really helped me with that. And then I love the poetry of Rumi, and I read that all the time. And that just deeply touches and inspires me. And there are other poets as well.
Well, Ken Wilber, we've just interviewed in 2024 Peter Mary, who helped co-found Ubiquity and is fantastic, gave a great interview. But he's closely tied to Ken just because Ken's involved in Ubiquity as well. Can you spend a second for those who maybe heard the name but don't understand integral theory? Just whatever version of it that you're willing to just paint the picture on, so people have a little bit more understanding, might be drawn to checking out his books. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah. Well, he created this model. He basically synthesized all of the great spiritual teachers, all of the religions, psychology, science, quantum mechanics. He kind of synthesized all this information into a model that helps us understand how things work for us as individuals, but also in society. And so for one thing, he created kind of a format for spiritual growth and development and the stages and phases that we go through as we're developing. And once you understand that, you can meet anyone around you and you get a sense of where they are in their development. And when you see that someone is maybe at an earlier stage, there are just things they don't understand that they haven't learned yet. It gives you all this compassion for everyone, because you kind of see, oh, like I've had this I've been gifted with all of this wisdom and had all this support to grow to my highest level, but a lot of people have not, and they're just at the beginning of their journey. And so they need love and compassion, not criticism and blame or anger for their lower consciousness thinking. But that's part of his model. And he also explains the 4 quadrants for ourselves of our being, which is kind of the inner and the outer, the psychological, the community, and the social parts of ourselves. And it really helps you just see yourself as a whole person and how all of these parts of you function together to make you who you are. And it's really fantastic. And I got to hear Peter Mary speak several years ago. He's amazing.
And so incredible. I loved how you explained that. Can you talk to us about your overseas either work, your overseas experiences, travel, journeys? You've been overseas quite a bit. And what would you like to share about that?
I guess because this is something I'm writing about right now, is my first trip to Europe was a trip to Italy with my husband. And on the day we left, a patient of mine, and this again was in the clinic, the low income clinic for uninsured people, a 13-year-old boy died of the H1N1 flu that I had taken care of. He died the day we were leaving on our trip to Italy. So I spent the whole time in Italy kind of grieving over the death of this child. But it turned out to be this amazing trip where everywhere we went, there were kind of synchronicities, and I would see things or find things and learn things that were part of this whole experience of grief. It's almost as if, I had planned out an itinerary for what our romantic Italy trip was going to be, but an entirely different trip took place. That was all me getting all these insights and learning more about not only grief, but guilt, when the guilt that you feel when as a medical provider, you can't change something or fix something, and how we have to come to accept that. So that was this incredible trip through Italy, and every place I went, there was something new shown to me. And it was a really magical and wonderful trip.
Okay, can you take us into that a little bit more? A couple of examples on the front end of what was either magical or synchronicities or serendipity. And then also on the back end, just a little bit more about how you learned to lighten up And while there's going to be shocking news or events that happen, how not to stay attached to it, to remember to maybe hit the heart button a little more. It doesn't mean you're not honoring what happened. It just means you're remembering love a little quicker. But first, what happened in Italy?
Okay, I'll start with the first day we got there. And meanwhile, I hadn't slept for 2 days. I was devastated. I was completely lost in shock and grief. And I had left my clinic where they're dealing with the death of this little boy, but they told me to go. They could handle it. And I didn't want to be in Italy. That was very I just thought this is going to be the worst trip of my life. I'm not in no state of mind to be here trying to travel through Italy. And my husband and I were trying to find the Forum in Rome and got lost, and we couldn't read the map, and we were fighting with each other. It was a disaster. And finally we walked up some hill, and there was a little church on the side of the road, and we were hot. And so I said, let's just go in here. We can cool off. Let's look at the map and try to figure out where we are and figure out where we're going. And we went in this little church, and it was like so beautiful, so lovely inside, and so calming. It was a very, very old church, one of the oldest churches in Rome. It turned out we didn't know anything, but we're just in there. We looked at our map, and my husband said, well, I'm going to go, I'll go back outside and figure out where we are. And I said, I just want to look around this church. So I walked around the church looking in all the little chapels and at all the pictures and everything. And I came upon it. It was like a little booth for confessions, where confessions take place. And I walked up, and there was a monk sitting inside the booth, which was, I had no idea anyone was even in there. He was wearing he was Franciscan, and he had a brown robe and a belt around his waist. He was sitting on a bench, and there was a little table in front of him with a basket and a pen, some little pieces of paper, and a sign that said prayer requests. And it was a sign in English, which I later thought, wait, this is Italy. I'm not sure the sign would have been in English, but that's all I could read. It said prayer requests. And so I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. My heart's breaking for the parents of this little boy who died. So I'm going to write, please help this family with their grief. Please, please be with them and help them. And be with me too. And then I folded it all up into, a little square, and I looked up, and the monk was shaking his head like, yes, as if it's already done. Before, he hadn't read it or seen what I wrote. He just shook his head. Yes, I get goosebumps now. And instantly the word novena popped into my head. I didn't know what that was. I had no idea, but that word came into my head, and I went out to my husband and said, do you know what a novena is? And he said, no. And I said, that word is stuck in my head. I need to know what it means. So we looked it up, and I found out it's where you pray for something that you need or want for 9 days in a row, and you focus on that one thing. And I thought, wow, that's how I'm going to survive my trip to Italy. My novena is this grief prayer for this boy's family and for me, and every day for these 9 days, I'll find a special place, and I'll say the prayer, and I'll say the novena. And when I got home from the trip, what's interesting is the family was irate when I left. They were on the news, on television, saying terrible things about our clinic. And by the time I got back, they said something shifted for this family. Like, in the middle of the time you were gone, suddenly they changed their attitude, and they came to us, and they were grateful, and they said, we know you did everything you could. And so things were happening. Things were shifting. The prayers were all being answered. So that's the big message of what was happening during that trip in Italy. Really beautiful.
And we're going to get to that in a little bit, because you're leading into a segue of an area I'd like to cover in a little bit. And we'll let you remember this for us and the audience, is just how your practice has expanded beyond medicine to more on the spiritual front, or just simply how to live better. You've got practices you suggest in your books, in your seminars, as a speaker, all over. I'd love to get into that in a second, but just before we do, there was the guilt that happened with the patient dying, you've had to be quicker in recovering from blows like that. And all of us go through this. And I think some of us with time get a little better about staying in the heart or returning to the heart quicker and regaining a broader perspective, a compassionate perspective. What was that all about as a learning process for you, and how has it evolved since then? And so where are you now with remembering love, when you can remember to remember, if you remember?
Yeah. Well, I had to learn, when I was in my higher self, everything was so sparkly and glowing and beautiful that it allowed me to kind of ignore some of the wounds and the pain that had been stored from old experiences that I'd never really processed or healed. And so it took me a while to recognize, like, when I got stuck and I couldn't get back to love in my heart, it's because of those old experiences. That's what was sticking me. I was stuck in the past because something that hadn't healed within me was keeping me stuck, and that's what was making it so hard for me to get back to the light and the love. So I had to gradually learn that, as much as I don't want to go back there, I don't want to go look at these things, it's important to. And I started journaling then, and using my journal as a place to process and write about things. And when something triggered me or I felt emotion come up, I started really paying attention to that. So journaling has been one of my most important tools for me. Just that's like I'm having a conversation, in a way, almost having a conversation with my higher self through my lower self, talking about, this happened, how do I live with that? How do I deal with that? But for me, I use meditation and I do yoga to help my body relax and to also tap into what's stored in my body. But there are a couple of things. One that I just learned during COVID that a friend taught me is to say, right now, I'm okay. And I love that little mantra, because no matter how rough everything around us feels and how it feels like we're being pushed to the point of panic because everything's falling apart out there, to stop and just say, oh, wait, right now I'm okay. I'm fine. There's a roof over my head. I just ate. I have everything I need. Right now, I'm fine. And I get myself instantly back to that calm place. And then the other thing that has really helped me is the loving kindness blessing, or metta, which is the Buddhist prayer that I learned a number of years ago. And that I say to myself all the time. The one I know is, may I be at peace, may my heart remain open, may I realize the beauty of my own true nature, may I be healed, and may I be a source of healing for this world. And so that is that works for me every time. If I need to get back to that, like, oh, may I be at peace, I need to stay calm, I need to remember my true nature, I need to get into my heart and feel all the love. And so that's probably one of my very favorite tools.
Wonderful. Okay, you've done a lot of speaking, a lot of workshops, a lot of presentations, books, and more, a lot of guest appearances. Can you take us through sort of your trajectory, some of the highlights, if it's just briefly, but also touch upon the books? That'll be in the details below the video. But what I wanted to do is just sort of have the audience understand how far you've gone for reaching audiences all over and on a variety of topics. Is there something we don't know about where it's maybe headed in 2025 and beyond? Have you been playing with a few new areas? Can you maybe share those as well?
Okay. Well, I retired from my hospice work and from all clinical medicine about 12 years ago. And I had this inspiration that I wanted to write a book about these 7 lessons that I felt like I kept learning over and over and seeing over and over with patients in hospice. It was so powerful for me because they were all spiritual lessons, and I saw people grappling with them at the end of life. And I thought, and so many of my patients said to me, these are the things I wish I had learned before. I should have learned this already in my life. And then I wouldn't be, panicking at the end of life trying to figure this out. Things like love and forgiveness and the present moment. And so those 7 lessons like stayed in my head for years. And when I retired, I finally wrote a book that at that time was called 7 Lessons for Living from the Stories of the Dying, then became What Really Matters after that. But and yeah, it's been republished a couple of times. And so those 7 lessons, that felt to me like that's a gift that I was handed, and that's a framework that came to me. So I need to use these 7 lessons. That's what I came here to teach. This is what my teaching should be about. So so that book is now 7 Lessons for Living from the Dying. And then I had the inspiration to write the next book called, oh, thank you. The kind of a sequel to this book several years later, called The Journey from Ego to Soul, to talk a little bit more. Like, it's not enough to just understand what these 7 things are, but I had to talk about how I actually had to live them and how I learned them on the way, and how I experienced these lessons in my life, how they were taught to me and shown to me over time, and then to give people a lot of journaling prompts and exercises and activities and things they could do to help them as they were trying to learn these same lessons. So that's the next book that I wrote, Journey from Ego to Soul, which was a really powerful book for me to write, because that it was really important for me to get beyond just talking theoretically in a way about ideas like surrender and impermanence, to actually talk about what does it mean in life when you're trying to surrender in your life from day to day.
Okay, let's go back, if we could, let's walk among the trees, or go at least treetop level. Last year, this year, can you share a couple of moments where we're past medicine, we're past the lecture stuff, where you've been practicing, and I don't even want to call it spirituality, we'll just call it practicing listening or connecting with the universe in ways that, yes, there'd be a lot of people that if we just interrupted them in the middle of work, they might not be able to have this compute from a thinking, grasping point, but pretty much everyone's heart is pretty big, and they know it from an athletics perspective, music, yoga. I mean, they are touching the universe all the time. They might not know it that way. Can you talk to us about some practice activity happening last year, this year, that is technically intuitive somehow? You, again, connecting with the universe is what I'll call it. What could you share that sort of has transpired that, again, would give us some flavor?
Yeah, great question to ask, because this year for myself, I had a health scare. I developed a heart arrhythmia, which came out of the blue for me. I wasn't prepared for it at all. And I've always been physically healthy and have kind of ignored the physical body to, I mean, I just like the body just comes along and everything's fine. So it was very confusing for me. Um, and that's when I met you. Dealing with this arrhythmia, I had terrible symptoms of shortness of breath. I couldn't walk up stairs. I was exhausted. I just had never had anything come over me like this. And I was getting a lot of medical recommendations from all my doctor friends, like, you need to go in and get an echocardiogram, you need to have this done and that done, procedures and drugs. And something kept saying to me, this is the heart we're talking about. This is the heart. And I thought, if anything, the heart is my messenger. It's telling me something. I have to listen to my heart first. I've got to go in and hear what my heart tells me. I don't want to do something to wipe out the messenger. I don't want to kill the messenger. I want to be with it. I want to welcome it and embrace it. So it took a while to get to that place. And it was during that time that you reached out to me, actually. And then we did work together, which was phenomenal, because you helped me get in touch again with my angels, because this was a time when I got stuck in fear of my own physical body is failing me, and I don't know how. I was confused and wasn't sure how to get out of it. But with the work that you and I did together was just so powerful. I got messages like, take your time, just wait,
Mm.
trust. It's not going to happen immediately. Give it time. Keep writing. Walk on the beach. I got these simple directions of what to do next. And within a week after that time, suddenly my symptoms were like just diminishing and completely under control. And I what I recognized is, aha, this is one of those times when it's something old stuck in my heart, and it happens to be grief again over my dad's death, guilt over all kinds of things in my life that I never processed. I just held on to it and stored it there. So since that, for the last few months, I've been doing really powerful work um, for myself on all of that, and it's been phenomenal. And I have no idea why you reached out to me, and I don't know if you know, but at exactly I got an email from you at exactly the lowest point. And I knew, like, well, of course I'm saying yes, because this isn't by mistake either. This isn't random that you reached out to me. And so I thank you. I'm so grateful to you, because just that time that we spent together, you got me reconnected and got me back into my heart and experiencing the angels again.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that. We did such a it's not sterile, it's just without talking about any physical details. You simply were able to receive, get answers. So it's not that I was in the dark either, but I was in the dark basically. And it was at the very end of 2 days, you mentioned the medical condition itself, and I just heard more now than I knew
Yeah,
then.
you didn't
Um,
know.
no, and so this is beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Does that mean there might be one more thing if you shared that much? Let me ask it in an abstract way, and then you'll just decide what you want to share and so on. Maybe you know someone that this happened to. Do angels ever show up in human form?
I think so. I mean, I have had experiences where I wondered, like, who was that person? Like, why were they there? And what was that about? I really, this happened a long time ago, but I was as like a teenager driving home really late at night when I shouldn't have been. And my car was almost out of gas, and I had 35 miles to get to the next town, but my car had been on empty for a while. And I thought, I'm going to get stuck out here in the middle of nowhere with no gas. But I thought, but maybe this little town coming up will have a gas station. That was my only hope. So I was kind of asking, like, help me get there. I was actually asking my guardian angel, like, you got to help me get to this town. And I realized there's only like 500 people live there. The gas station isn't going to be open at midnight. But I get to the town, there's one gas station, the lights on inside. I mean, I have at least gas fumes enough to drive up to that gas station, and the door's unlocked. So I walk inside and there's a man in there. And I said, I can't believe you're open. And he said, oh, well, I'm the owner. My alarm just went off when I was at home. So I came down here to see what that was about. And I said, oh, well, I need some gas. Would you sell it to me? He filled up my tank with gas, and like I drove away, and I thought, I'm not sure that was like, did that really happen? But I have a full tank of gas. And how did that man get there? And was that something outside of just the ordinary and the normal? So I don't always know. Was he an angel who just showed up at that gas station and gave me gas? Maybe.
Well, maybe it's time we'll blow a little bit of sage. And if people haven't watched the show before, it's just something we generally do. I think there was only one show in 2024 so far. One show that we didn't get to do it for just generic purposes. Another show, I was so excited about the guest and everything they did before the show that I forgot to do it during the show. I forgot to do anything during the show. That guest was off the charts intuitive. You would have never known. Flew through everything with flying colors. And again, I was just so delighted to have him or her on the show. I was just blown away. I forgot to do anything I normally do on the show. This is where I light a little bit of sage, and it doesn't matter if you're in Atlanta, Italy, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and it doesn't matter if it's 10 years in the future. There's not as much time and space as you think there is, because it isn't about thinking. Let the universe bring you a little sage smoke. Call it sage smoke, plant medicine, love. If you want to say, hey, universe, angels, could you get me out of my head into my heart to help me smell it a little? Some people who are hypersensitive will start tasting it maybe or smell it right now. And when you see the smoke, let it come to you if you have a request. You want to feel at ease with work. You got bills, conditions, this, that. Ask for a little help depending on what you're trusting and how you roll. But you can also ask for a flower scent or an ocean scent. You haven't been to the West Coast of the United States in a while, but you love the memory. Have an angel bring you Santa Barbara. Or if you want part of Mexico, Baja Peninsula, Costa Rica, Azores, Seychelles, Brazil, whatever is just floats your boat. And Karen, what are you getting in where you're at now?
The sage, but also some jasmine, I would say.
Awesome. I'll put this up. Okay. And with your permission, is it okay to put up maybe 3 angel photos? We'll put up maybe Joy, Charlotte, and Min. And these are photos I've put up before. I just was in a panic 10 or 12 years ago. I'm seeing, I'm hearing, and I did what any good American college kid would do, except I was 42 at the time. I grabbed a SureShot camera, started taking photos, fairies, Play-Doh, blah, blah, blah. Used to hand the camera to folks. I feel like I'm off the hook because people can just directly see light energy or full on. And you can do this as a group. It happened at a Meg Institute for 3 people. They got to see an angel named Joy, who I'm about to put up. And these photos will move. A historical photo will move. So it's a little bit of interdimensionality. I think it's a more popular term these days. It really doesn't matter. It's however each individual rolls, you have to respect that. So if you're a little loosey-goosey or you're wildly intuitive or wildly open, have fun with this. Put your hand up, feel what you can feel, ask for flowers, get a hug. But Karen, you can get a topic from Joy. She's the emotion Joy. She's the ambassador communicator for folks. If you wanted to play pickleball tomorrow, you are playing pickleball or tennis, and you wanted to hit a winner, just ask Joy to be in your arm, ask to be in that flow state, but let her do her job, get out of your way, out of your head, into your heart, and then hit a winner. But don't tell anybody an angel, helped you beat the opponent. Okay, so Karen, what are you getting from Joy as a reminder for us all?
Well, what I'm sensing is don't be afraid of the challenges that come along in life, because they're actually always there to help you and benefit you, and learn how to carry those along with the joy. Learn how to hold both of them, and learn how to retain your sense of joy and love and light, even when difficult things are happening.
Beautiful. Okay, an angel named Charlotte. She's everybody's favorite school teacher with words meant to help you expand. If you're in Canada or New Zealand, 3rd form, Mrs. Wilson, but not the Mrs. Johansson, not the one who got you in trouble all the time, the nice one. And what's Charlotte got for you?
I think she's saying to remember that your path in life is not necessarily what you think it is, or what you imagine, or what you plan or choose for yourself, that it's going to unfold as you go. And there's like this beautiful mystery and curiosity about all of it. So find a way to just trust that, just trust.
And that's a big message you're sharing with people. The trust that's available if you're willing to get out of the dynamic that happens up here, that there's so much more trust available in each situation, whether it's medically, this situation, that situation. That's what I would recommend people tune in on when they go to reach for your books, watch you on shows. To me, you're all about that faith, whether it's religious, non-religious faith. I call it letting go, to go from here to here, and trust. So faith and trust is how I'd put it. Okay, now this angel is one out of 200 plus figures from all over the cosmos. I mean, angels can be from Andromeda, Sirius. It could be Audrey Hepburn. I mean, archangels. We've heard so many stories, guardian angels, and so on. She's got a complex name. It's Min, like Minnesota, Lakota Sioux word for water. She's light waves of energy in water, a soft-spoken professor. People can just call her Min. But just in case anybody's wondering, Awala is a Polynesian morning glory vine, sweet potatoes in the ground, so sustenance. And then in Hawaiian, Ua and La, if I'm getting this correctly, Ua is rain, La is sun, so it's rainbow. Name, water rainbow, water morning glory, just call her Min. And you've got a little bit of an extra connection to her. What are you getting from her? And anybody who wants to catch an ocean smell, Kanapali, Wailea, if you remember Hawaii, if you want to stick more local, Rehoboth, Bethany, or like sorry, I'm losing my Australian beaches, but an Australian beach, New Zealand beach, whatever's comfortable for you. Ask her to bring it to you. If you have to close your eyes, do it. And I'll blow twice through the microphone. You can catch a little ocean breeze on your nose for those who are like all in, as if we're at a casino. And one more breath, and you can play this over this part. If you need extra help though, just ask angels, hey angels, get me out of my head into my heart to help feel an ocean breeze or feel more relaxed or just be in my heart. You've got to choose the words and set your own intent. One more time. And Karen, what are you getting from Min, and what would you like to share about Min?
Well, when I first saw this picture of Min, I recognized that, oh my goodness, that's the person who was standing over me when I was a little child in my room. Like that, what I see in that picture, that's what I saw when I was a child. So I felt this deep connection. But what I'm getting right now is that the little things in life are sometimes the most important things, and that we get all caught up and hung up on the big things of life, but it's actually taking time for the smallest little things, like to enjoy the taste of your coffee or feel the breeze on your face, or just always be present in a space where you're noticing all the little things and get all the joy you can from those.
Well, wonderful. Could you just remind us on one last front about love and how important it is? How do I do this? Every human is going through their humanness or their adulting. And as a kid, we were open. We had no limits at some point. We wanted to climb that tree, become an astronaut, do this, do that. At some point, the seriousness of life, the adulting kicked in. It could have been outside trauma, an accident, loss, this, that. Life happens. Um, what's your message about how dynamic it all is, in fact, from your own experience, from the experience of so many patients? What would be a final way to wrap this up as a reminder to live more, love more, allow more? And I'll throw in one quote from Angels. You can be happy now in this very moment for no reason whatsoever.
Mm. And the way I view it, that all of the love that you need and that you may be seeking outside of you, it is within you. It flows through you all the time. It's just that oftentimes we're carrying, as I said before, so much fear, and we have old wounds, old stuck energy within us. We can't experience the love or allow it to flow through us very well. And so part of this life experience, it's like, oh, I guess I imagine a violin that's been hollowed out, wood that's been hollowed out inside. That's how it makes the beautiful music, that we have to let ourselves kind of be hollowed out in some ways, and allow that to happen, allow things to change, allow ourselves to heal and let go of the past and all those things that hold us back. And then we can make the beautiful music. We can be the channels for love, that it's just waiting to flow through us. And it's actually, we don't have to do very much. It's actually simpler than we might imagine. Just turn around and look at yourself with love, and allow yourself to let go of whatever you've been holding on to that holds you back.
Oh, beautiful. Can you say your website out loud in case there's people who are just driving right now and want to hear it here?
The best website to go to right now is eoluniversity.com. So that EOL stands for end of life, but eoluniversity.com, and that's where you can find all my connections there.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. It has been a delight. I've been feeling it the whole time. If anybody's wondering, either my facial expressions or I've been squirming, I've just been feeling the energy here. So it's been a wonderful interview. I'm very thankful.
Thank you so much. And thanks for all the help that you've given me. I'm really grateful.
Thank you again.